Listen closely because what I am about to share with you is not just advice. It is the absolute truth about human nature and how relationships truly work in the modern world. And if you are tired of feeling confused or undervalued, then you need to pay attention to every single word that comes out of my mouth right now. Because this could very well be the turning point in your love life. And the moment you stop settling for less than you deserve and start attracting the kind of man who looks at you with genuine admiration and deep respect and wants to build a future with you that is solid and secure and filled with love. But before we dive into the nitty-gritty details, I need you to understand one fundamental concept that changes everything. And that concept is boundaries. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot these days, and people think they know what it means. But most people have no idea what a real boundary actually looks like in practice. And so they end up confused and hurt and wondering why their relationships keep failing over and over again. But today, we are going to clear up all that confusion and give you a roadmap to becoming a woman who is respected and cherished and desired for exactly who she is and not for who she pretends to be to keep a man happy. So let us start with the core idea that if there is one thing that men deeply respect in a woman and respond to on an emotional level, it is a woman who has clear and strong boundaries. And this single quality will set you apart from everyone else that he meets, and it will make you stand out in a crowd of women who are trying too hard to please him and losing themselves in the process. Because when a man sees a woman who knows her worth and protects her peace, he instinctively feels safer and more attracted to her because he knows she is not desperate and she is not looking for him to complete her, but rather she is looking for a partner to share her already complete life with. And that is a powerful magnetic force that draws high-value men toward you like moths to a flame. But you have to get it right, and you have to understand what a boundary actually is in simple terms. Because if you do not understand the definition, you cannot apply the principle effectively in your daily interactions. And so, a boundary is a clear standard that you set to protect your well-being in relationships. And it is not a wall that keeps people out, but rather a gate that controls who gets in and how they treat you once they are inside your circle of trust. And I like to explain boundaries using a visual metaphor that is easy to understand and remember. So imagine there is a bubble around you, okay? And this bubble represents your beliefs, your values, and your inner peace. And it is sacred space that belongs only to you, and no one else has the right to invade it without your permission. And when you interact with men, they have their own bubbles, okay? And sometimes those bubbles clash with yours, because everyone has different backgrounds and expectations and needs. And so if your bubble is not strong enough, if you do not clearly show how you want to be treated and what you value, then you can end up people-pleasing and feeling powerless and losing touch with your authentic self. And that is a dangerous place to be, because when you lose yourself, you become invisible to the very people you want to attract. And you become a doormat for those who want to take advantage of your kindness and generosity. And so my name is Ismael Gomez, and ladies, today's video is one of the most important ones that I ever made, because I am going to give you the tools you need to reclaim your power and your dignity and your happiness. So stop multitasking and put down your phone and give me your full attention as I walk you through the different types of boundaries and how to use them in your interactions with men, so they respond to you with admiration and respect, and a deeper emotional connection that lasts and does not fade away after the honeymoon phase is over. Okay, so let us begin with the first type, which is emotional boundaries. And this is often the hardest one for women to master because we are taught from a young age to be nurturing and accommodating and to put the feelings of others before our own. And so we suppress our own emotions to keep the peace and to avoid conflict. But this comes at a high cost to our mental health and our self-esteem. And so this first type relates to your feelings and how you share them with the other person. And it is about knowing where your emotions end and theirs begin, and not taking responsibility for how they feel or letting them dictate how you feel. And if you ever feel undervalued or guilty or ashamed after expressing yourself because of your partner's response, then it may be time to have a serious conversation about your emotional boundaries and to reset the dynamic in your relationship, because you deserve to be heard and validated and not dismissed or mocked for having feelings. And for example, when you share an experience with a man and he replies with something dismissive like, "Ah, that is crazy," or, "But that is not what you really feel," then you are being invalidated and your reality is being denied. And if you often find yourself defending your emotions in such situations, then it is likely that your boundaries are a bit blurred in that area, and you are allowing him to define your reality for you, which is a form of emotional abuse that can creep up on you slowly until you no longer trust your own instincts and perceptions. And so you need to learn to stand firm and say, "This is how I feel, and my feelings are valid regardless of whether you agree with them or not." And if he cannot respect that, then he does not deserve access to your inner world and your vulnerability. And now, ladies, this does not mean that you can use this to justify behavior that could hurt the other person, right? Because boundaries are not excuses for bad behavior. And so, for example, saying something like, "Oh, I was feeling sad and lonely because he would not listen to me, so I went and I called my ex." Because he is a great listener, is not setting a boundary. It is acting out in a destructive way that violates the trust in your current relationship. And so you need to find healthy ways to cope with your emotions and to communicate your needs without resorting to manipulation or betrayal. And come on now, we all know that is not the way to build a healthy and lasting partnership. And another element in this category is emotional dumping, which is a huge issue in many relationships, and I see so many women struggle with this. And many of you feel an overwhelming responsibility to always be available to listen to a man's complaints, even on days when you feel, emotionally drained or dealing with your own challenges. And so you become his therapist and his cheerleader and his support system while neglecting your own needs and desires. And deep down, you have this fear that if you are not there for him every single time, he might lose interest or even walk away. And so you sacrifice your own well-being to keep him happy. But this is a recipe for resentment and burnout, and it is not sustainable in the long run. And so you need to learn to say no when you are not in the headspace to listen, and to set limits on how much emotional labor you are willing to perform for your partner, and to encourage him to seek professional help if he is struggling with issues that are beyond your capacity to handle. And this is not selfish, it is self-preservation. And it is necessary for a balanced and healthy relationship where both partners contribute equally to the emotional workload. And so do not be afraid to step back and take care of yourself first, because you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot give love and support to others if you are depleted and exhausted. And so prioritize your own mental health and set clear boundaries around what you are willing to discuss and when you are willing to discuss it. And this will not only protect your peace, but it will also teach your partner to respect your limits and to value your time and energy, and to become more self-sufficient and resilient in the face of his own challenges. And so emotional boundaries are about protecting your heart and your mind and your spirit from being drained and depleted by others, and ensuring that you have enough left over to enjoy your life and your relationships and to thrive as an individual. And so take this seriously and start practicing today by noticing when you feel drained or resentful and asking yourself what boundary you need to set to protect your energy, and then communicating that boundary clearly and firmly to your partner, and watching how the dynamic shifts in your favor and how you feel more empowered and confident and in control of your own emotional landscape. And so that is the first pillar of strong boundaries. And now we move on to the second pillar, which is time and energy boundaries. And this is perhaps the most tangible and easy to measure boundary, because time is a finite resource that once spent cannot be recovered. And so how you spend your time says a lot about what you value and who you respect. And so one personal boundary and standard that I have always had is this: if someone cancels on me twice in a row, like they cancel today and then again tomorrow, that is it. Unless it is due to a serious emergency, which is almost never the case, I would not make plans with that person again, and I would cut them off from my life, because their actions show me that they do not value my time or my presence. And so I do not waste my energy on people who do not reciprocate my effort and commitment. And now you might think, Ismael, is not that a bit extreme? But here is the thing. Okay. You need to look at yourself first and ask yourself if you are willing to accept that kind of treatment. And if you are teaching people that it is okay to disrespect your time by accepting last-minute cancellations and flaky behavior. And when I reflect on my own actions, I have never canceled a date or a meeting with anyone, okay? And in fact, I have even gone on last-minute dates while feeling completely exhausted because I genuinely wanted to see her. And that is how much I value showing up and honoring my commitments. And so when you are willing to put in that kind of effort for a man, it is only fair to expect the same commitment from him. Otherwise, it is a sign that he is not respecting your time and he is not interested in building a serious relationship with you. And so, do not settle for crumbs of attention and affection when you deserve a feast of consistency and reliability. And so, if he cancels on you twice, then let him go and move on to someone who values you enough to show up and to be present and to honor the plans you have made together. And another example of someone breaking those boundaries is when you have those crazy exes that you block and you tell them to not contact you. And they keep reaching out, calling you from unknown numbers or sending you emails to bypass your boundaries. And this is a clear violation of your privacy and your peace. And you need to take strong action to stop it, such as changing your number or blocking them on all platforms and seeking legal help if necessary. Because no one has the right to harass you or stalk you, and you have the right to feel safe and secure in your own life. And so do not tolerate this kind of behavior and do not engage with them, because engagement is fuel for their obsession. And so starve them of attention and protect your peace at all costs. And when the tables turn and you are the crazy ex, right? Breaking those boundaries because, yes, ladies, I am holding you accountable too. And I know that some of you have been the ones who could not let go and who kept reaching out even after being told to stop. And so I want you to reflect on your own behavior and to take responsibility for your actions and to learn to respect the boundaries of others just as you want them to respect yours. And so what is your best relationship advice in this situation? Well, my advice is to marry someone who has the attitude that everything is workable. Like if there is a flag, if there is a tension there, something that makes you uncomfortable, those are things to note, but not necessarily run from. That is an opportunity to kind of press in and explore and see what happens, instead of making assumptions instead of running. Ask questions like, what do you mean by that? And why does this bother you? And how can we resolve this together? And that is a great question to ask, and it is something we have been practicing for a long time in our own relationships. And it has helped us to navigate conflicts and misunderstandings with grace and empathy and understanding. And so instead of making statements that shut down communication, we ask questions that open up dialogue and create space for connection and growth. And so this is how you handle time and energy boundaries with wisdom and maturity and strength. And so now we move on to the third pillar, which is intellectual boundaries. And this type of boundary is about what you think your values, beliefs, and opinions, and how you allow others to treat your mind and your intellect. And in relationships, a common issue is a lack of respect for different perspectives and a tendency to try to change the other person or to invalidate their views. And so, people often talk about compatibility, but even a couple who shares the same religion, can struggle if one person dismisses or belittles the other person's opinion on important matters. And so it is not about agreeing on everything, but about respecting the right to disagree and to have different viewpoints and experiences. And on the other hand, an atheist and a Christian can make it work if they respect each other's beliefs and are willing to compromise and to find common ground, and to celebrate their differences rather than fighting over them. And this is something that I always tell the men who follow me, because sometimes guys come to me saying, Ismael, I do not want my girl posting pictures of herself in a bikini on Instagram for other guys to see, or I do not feel comfortable when she goes to clubs with her single friends. But when I tell her how this makes me feel, she calls me possessive or controlling. And this is where many people get confused, especially when you are watching content that tells you, what women should wear, what guys should do, and what is acceptable and what is not. And so I always tell men that there is no right or wrong answer here, okay? Just two people with different values and preferences and comfort levels. And so my advice is always simple. Find a woman who naturally does not do the things that make you uncomfortable, okay? Because there are millions of women out there who think the same way that you do and who share your values and your lifestyle. And so you do not need to try to change her or control her. You just need to find someone who is already aligned with you and who makes you feel secure and happy without you having to police her behavior. And so this saves you both a lot of stress and conflict and allows you to build a relationship based on mutual respect and shared values, rather than control and resentment. And this reminds me when I dated an actress back in college. And I used to live in New York, and I was dating this actress who was very talented and beautiful. And so on our second date, she invited me to go see her play. And so I go to the theater and I sit down. And right in the opening scene, okay, she comes out and it is kind of like a bedroom scene. And 5 seconds into the scene, a guy rushes into the scene, grabs her by the arm, kisses her, and they start making out passionately. And so I am sitting there in the audience, looking around like, that is the girl that I am dating, and I am feeling uncomfortable and exposed. And so right there and then, I knew that I was never dating an actress again, and that this profession was not compatible with my values and my need for privacy and exclusivity in a relationship. And you know, this is just a boundary for me, and it is not better or worse than anyone else's boundary. It is just what works for me. And much respect to anyone who marries an actor, but this is not for me. And so you need to know what your intellectual and values-based boundaries are and to stick to them, and to not compromise on the things that matter most to you just to keep a relationship alive. Because a relationship that requires you to betray your values is not a relationship that will bring you happiness and fulfillment in the long run. And so be honest with yourself and with your partner about what you believe and what you stand for, and find someone who respects and shares those beliefs. And so that is the third pillar, and now we move on to the fourth pillar, which is physical boundaries. And on this one, I want to focus specifically on physical intimacy and the importance of consent and comfort and safety. And here is what I want to start with, okay? Never compromise your comfort or safety to sexually please a man. And if it makes you feel uneasy or if it puts you at risk, then do not do it. And no amount of pressure or persuasion or guilt tripping should ever make you do something that you do not want to do. And your body belongs to you, and you have the absolute right to decide who touches it and how and when. And so let me tell you, ladies, that if there is one thing that will filter out most time wasters and manipulators, is having strong, strong boundaries around physical intimacy. Because a man who respects you will respect your no and will not try to push you or coerce you into doing anything that you are not ready for. And so a lot of times women come to me and say, I told this guy that I did not want to sleep with him on the third date and he got angry and left. And to that I say, good, you just dodged a bullet. Because he was not interested in you. He was interested in using you for sex. And so his reaction showed you his true intentions and saved you from wasting more time on him. And because here's the most important thing you need to understand about boundaries, okay? Listen well. Setting boundaries is going to create tension always, because you are challenging the status quo and you are asserting your needs and your rights. And respect requires tension and friction. For example, if we meet in person at one of my live events, let us say, okay? And you try to give me a hug and I say, hey, I do not know you that well, okay? You are probably not going to like it, right? And you might feel rejected or offended. But guess what? I would rather be respected than liked. And that is a mindset that I want you to embrace. Because being liked is fleeting and superficial, but being respected is lasting and meaningful. And so do not be afraid of the tension that comes with setting boundaries, because it is a sign that you are standing in your power and that you are demanding the respect that you deserve. And so if a man pulls away when you set a boundary, then let him go, because he was never the right man for you. And the right man will step up and meet you at your level and appreciate your strength and your clarity. And so physical boundaries are about protecting your body and your sexuality and your integrity and ensuring that you are treated with dignity and care. And so do not let anyone violate those boundaries and do not apologize for having them. And so that is the fourth pillar. And now we move on to the final pillar, which is financial boundaries. And this is a crucial one that is often overlooked until it is too late. And so there is a Netflix documentary called The Tinder Swindler. And I do not know if you ladies have seen it, but it is about a man who scammed countless women into paying him millions of dollars by pretending to be a wealthy diamond merchant and by manipulating their emotions and their trust. And so if you want a crash course on the importance of financial boundaries, I suggest that you check it out and learn from the mistakes of those women who lost everything because they did not have strong financial boundaries and because they were too afraid to ask questions or to verify his story. And so, maybe I am too traditional, but as a man, asking my partner for money would have to be a life or death situation, honestly, for me. And I would never expect a woman to pay for my expenses or to bail me out of financial trouble. And so even when I was broke, I would always just use the credit card and then pay it back because I valued my independence and my integrity. And so I believe that men and women should be financially independent and responsible for their own lives. And so once you enter a committed relationship, it is crucial to get clear about your finances and to have open and honest conversations about money and about your financial goals and habits. And so, are you going to combine them? Are you going to have different bank accounts? Are you going to split bills evenly or proportionally? And these are important questions that need to be answered early on in the relationship to avoid conflicts and misunderstandings later on. And because unfortunately, many people avoid this conversation, so they simply go along with whatever their partner suggests, even though it does not feel right to them. And so they end up resentful and stressed and financially unstable. And so do not be afraid to talk about money and to set clear expectations and boundaries around how you will handle finances together. And so protect your assets and your credit score and your financial future. And do not let anyone manipulate you into giving them money or taking on debt for them. And so be smart and be cautious and be proactive about your financial health. And so that is the fifth and final pillar of strong boundaries. And so ladies, I hope you found this video insightful and helpful and empowering. And I love to know out of these 5 boundaries, which one do you struggle with the most? And so please leave a comment below and let me know, because this is going to help me plan future videos that will feel more relevant to you and that will address your specific needs and challenges.